So now we're finally getting into the juicier parts of this tutorial where we're going to start modeling the actual building itself, or at least the hardscape first. So we're almost there. We're just going to go and turn off some of the layers that we don't need, for instance, the city model. And we're going to turn off the CAD layers that we don't need either. For example, we don't need the elevations for now. We don't need the stadium, which is on top. We don't need the plan for the building. And then let's just turn off the podium as well. So we're only left with the hardscape. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to create a new layer, and this one is going to be called, let's say, O2 hardscape. And we're going to start modeling on this layer. So there are two ways that you could do this. You could either grab the CAD layers themselves and then go Control V, make a copy, and then start to edit the actual pure splines from AutoCAD. Now, in this case, it would be fine because we made these splines ourselves and we know that they're continuous lines that are well formed. But I'm going to assume that you're going to be working with complex drawings that perhaps don't have well-made splines, and it's, let's say 20 joined lines together, and they don't really make much sense to it wouldn't make much sense to basically take the original geometry. So we're going to make everything from scratch, just using the CAD work as a reference underneath. So we're going to start by creating the splines just to retrace the outline for the hardscape. And we can choose corner to start off with, and then perhaps smooth. And then we're going to go back and edit all of that as we go along. And we can just use the snap tool by activating it here. And we can go through, and by pressing I, we can pan across our scene, backspace if you make a mistake. And we're just going to go and simply select the main points. And we can close that. And we can come back to our spline, and by deactivating that, we can select these that should be curved. And we can either go here and, if you right click, press smooth. You can either do that, or if you need more control, you can turn it into a Bezier. You can first see if smoothing works, and if the curves are not really looking great, then you can add more control just by adding that. Great, we don't have to be 100% correct. We just want to get the main outline to look more or less there. We're going to do the same thing now with the internal layers. If you would like, you can right click and isolate it just so that you can only work on the CAD plan itself. And we're going to do the same thing here where we trace out the CAD geometry. In this case, this is going to be our garden meandering landscape path, just as a vegetation strip. Backspace there again. Then we can actually do this one at the back as well. Let's say that all of this is going to be one big garden area as well. So let's just draw another line there. And then here we can untick start new shape so that we have the same backspace. Zoom in, and by pressing I, get closer to that. Great. Now we can go back to the individual vertices and just correct them. going to turn all of them to smooth and just see if that's good enough. And I know that since this is vegetation, it doesn't have to be too accurate, and I just want to keep the speed of this tutorial running quickly, so I'm not going to go back and re-edit everyone to be 100%, although that is what we should do if this was a serious project where we wanted to get that detail. So the main thing, if we're going to perspective now, we exit. We can just have a look at what we've created. We basically have our main surface, which is going to be the base for our entire site. This is going to be our landscape area. And now we need to make these little piers here. So what we can do for that, we can add a rectangle, can snap that on, and here we can add circles from edge to edge. And those circles we can copy across using instances. So I'm just holding down Shift as I'm copying across. And then over here we can do an arc. Just turn off my snap there. And in that arc we can go ahead and just turn it into an editable spline. And just give it some width, since this is going to be our, let's say we're going to do a 2 meter outline. Perhaps if we want it centered, then let's make it 3 meters just to add a little bit more size. And we can affect pivot center so we can get the pivot slightly closer. And again, I'm not going to be 100% accurate. I just want to move quickly and get this done. We can mirror that across. We can say make an instance. We know that we don't need 3, so we're going to delete one of them. Delete this guy here. And that's pretty much it for that part. We can now select this, and we're going to copy it across to the others. And just delete what we don't need. And slide this in. You'll see that I try to use as many of the same objects. This is going to be slightly lower than the surface above, so we won't see this part that's digging in here. And what we can do now is we can just unselect this and just copy by holding down Shift, just copy the part that we need. Instance that. Move this in. Right, so now we've made the base geometry for what we're going to be modeling, and we're going to do exactly the same thing for the podium. So we can turn on the podium layer, turn off the hardscape, and we can turn off this hardscape, and we can do the same process here. We say O2 podium, and we can start modeling that. So first we're going to just make all of the lines in plan, and then we will come back and edit that in elevation. So again, I could be copying this directly from the CAD by just making a duplicate of the CAD file and manipulating the CAD file itself, but I'm going to assume that we don't have the luck of having easy CAD files to work with. And then the last one, I'm going to try to do this as quickly as possible. So what I will do just to shorten this is I'm going to pause the video for 2 seconds, and I'm just going to correct some of these lines so that they're a little bit smoother, and then we will just have a look at the result once these vertices are smoothed out. So now I've gone and smoothed out all of these vertices by just converting them to smooth. and just realigning them one by one so that they fit as closely as possible to the CAD outline. So if we turn on our other layers, so this is just going to be the finishing off part, going to turn on our hardscape and turn off all the CAD layers, and just the only CAD layer we're going to keep now is the elevation grid. You can also keep the elevation on itself so that you can see what's going on, and you can then move everything up to the height that it needs to be. So the hardscape and the main level, we know that that's at 2 meters, which is this line here. We can see that according to the elevation. So I don't know if I can show you here. The sea level is the bottom line. The first line here will be the actual height of the hardscape. So we need to move that up by 2 meters. So that's that. These guys here we can move up visually. We can perhaps make them 1 meter 80, so we can just have them slightly below the level of the hardscape that they're connected to. So we can move that up by 1.8. Then the podium, we will have to have a look. I mean, this is a point where you'll need to know the building a little bit better. But in general, the big outline for the parking is going to be at these heights here. So these lines are the parking. So let's say we're going to do 22.5, or let's say 12. We're going to do the bottom one first. So the bottom parking layer, which is this one, is going to be positioned at 12 meters. So we just go here and select 12, and that moves up. Then this line here is going to be this upper podium line there. And if we look in elevation, that is going to be this 22.5 line. So we go 22.5 and we move that up, and you just see that has popped up into place. Now this line here is going to be the actual outline of the retail below, and we know that that can start at 2 meters. So we're just going to move that up to 2 meters as well. So once you're ready with that, you're ready to start extruding, and we will get to that in the next video once we start making real objects out of all of these. And we will leave it at that. So what we've done in this video, just to recap, is we've gone and traced over our CAD files, and we have gone and created the spline geometry that we will now generate the model from. These splines are going to be the reference that we will have for the slab edges. The balustrades will be made from them. All of the other objects in those regions will be generated from these initial splines. So they are very important to have in the right height and in the right position. And that is it for this video. We're looking forward to the actual extrusion process in the next one.